Hi everybody. As a result of having just done the big Harris, Rex, and Demountable article on the blog, we thought we'd take the opportunity to show you a couple of Demountables, which are typewriters that are pretty hard to find. We have a Demountable number 1 on the left, a number 2 on the right. It's pretty obvious right off the bat how you tell them apart. The one on the left, obviously the one on the left is missing its paper table. However, it is important to note that it's pretty much complete. A couple of interesting things about both of these. Both of them have return levers on both sides. Yep. Now,
pretty cool.
Yep. And it actuates a mechanism by a reach rod that I think is pretty much the same as the original Harris Visible. But there's a reach rod from that lever that runs all the way under there.
Yep. The left one operates the right, but not vice versa. So you could line space with the right or the left.
Yep. And the machine on the right has a number of differences. Now, we've just had these two things apart. We're going to show you how they come apart, hence the name Demountable. This one here, the carriage on this does come off. It's a little tricky because the machine is pretty whipped. Now, let me show you what he just did there. There's a latch you pull on the back of the typewriter, pull straight out away. We'll show you what that does. So that, you pull that straight out away, and then grab the side handles, lift, take the ribbon out. Oh, it's coming out.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
And that top part comes off, leaving you with the action unit.
Again, why weren't more typewriters made like this?
That's right. Now, let's go ahead and get the other one apart. There you go. Same thing. Now, if you want to look it down at the side here, if you'll actuate that, when you move that latch in the back, when that goes in and out, it actually operates these locking cams here via linkages to lock the typewriter to the base of the action unit there.
To this stamped steel plate.
Now, we're looking at these things, and the first thing that comes to mind really is these typewriters, in one way, are kind of like a lot of late standard typewriters, where the strength of the typewriter is really stampings that form up the typewriter.
Right.
And you can see that here, and you saw something pretty close to that with that Imperial. But just like the Imperial we showed you in the previous video, you've got big, complicated castings as well. So you've got
both these. This whole thing is one casting.
That's a pretty complicated
with a top
casting.
deck on it, mind you. There's a top deck on these.
Yeah.
Same with this guy, and the difference is, I think we'll show you in a minute. This has the ribbons on top and a drive mechanism underneath it. And there's no ribbons here because they're inside.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty neat feature.
Kind of like in an old Remington or a Victor. They're down beneath the type.
So on this one, on a 2, you don't have to take the ribbon down to take the top off. But those, normally you think of the casting as being a strength member or the most important precision member. These have 2. That has to be pretty accurate. But this stamped plate here with ribs in it for stiffening really is the main frame of the action, and there's a big cast iron web here.
Kind of hard to see.
I don't know if you can see. Let me make it a little bit brighter.
We can see it. Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Well, it's a little too bright in the center there. There you go.
Is that better?
That's better.
Product placement: E2D Defender flashlight. This casting is attached to that plate. And then there's another casting here that is essentially the strength member of the basket.
Yeah, the segment's going up and down.
Right.
On bearings.
And this one is the same way, except very slightly different. But again, some interesting spider castings in there.
Yeah, and if you look, there's just there's a toggle linkage on the side there. If I go ahead and push the key here, the shift key here, I can see the toggle, and it pulls down that lip. And it's, for those of you that are patent classification nuts out there, that would be actuated by toggle mechanism. If you want to dig around in that,
if you can find a demountable patent.
Yeah. Now, these are not the same. They're very close.
Yep.
The two bodies will not interchange on the two. We already tried that.
Yeah.
But there are a number of manufacturing improvements in this one that aren't in this one.
Yeah.
Look at the thing that we spotted just a little while ago. Right here, if I take a look right here, I have this plate, and there's a bunch of holes drilled in it, and all these little bearings are inserted on 2 prongs each through those holes, and then they're peened over. And Dave, if you can push the outer, I think it's a 1/4 key there, you can see that action comes from the primary key lever and pulls that little guy over the top. So you've got, on a typewriter that has a slotted segment, you've got this thing in front that amounts to, essentially, individual bearings, like on an old, like an L.C. Smith or
Right.
something like that. Well, that's completely changed in this machine. This machine, now we've got a big casting up here.
Yeah, this adds a
Not focusing too well. Can
big...
you take the light off there? Okay.
now?
Not really. Yeah, there we go. That's better.
Yeah.
So this big casting standing up here, all the way across, there's 2 holes drilled in it. I'm sure to hold it down to machine it. And it's got a fulcrum bar through it, just like the segment does
Yep.
for the type bars. So that's a massive improvement.
Yeah, and then of course there are slight differences in the angle of the actuation of the bars because it is a slotted casting.
Yeah, it's
and
just
it
a
is
little
larger,
changed, yeah.
But everything else is the same. Just a little bit of movement outboard to accommodate that.
And of course it would be covered by the same pattern.
Yep. And one thing you notice here, the linkages don't extend outboard past the edges of this basket, whereas because the casting has to have slots in it rather than these that are pinned very close together. See how close those are? Because they're pinned together, they can be as close as you want them to be. And that's a rivet through there that's peened over.
There we go.
Okay, yeah. So on this, because of that casting and needing the extra width, see they're splayed, and that outboard one is out further. There's a different angle to it. I mean, that's very different. Again, yeah, same patent, same basic idea, but much better construction here. Imagine having to work on this, or assemble it.
Yep. This one definitely saves you some time.
Yep.
So let's see. We'll get them back together here. We'll
You want to look at the underneath? You want to look at the key stops?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a
So
look.
look under here. Yeah, there's nothing going on up there. There's just a slotted stamped plate there.
That the key levers go
Now
through.
over here, look at all these ring shapes under here. Yeah, those are all individually fitted key lever stops. And they stop the key lever travel. As you would expect with a machine designed by D.C. Harris, the tallest one is a period key, so that you don't punch the paper. But they're all snapped in there.
And they're all different.
Each one has a little extension on the top, and they're different heights.
Yep.
So if you popped all those out of this typewriter and say, I'm just going to shred this machine, you say, oh, they're all different.
Yeah.
Where do they go?
Then you start either having letters that won't print or things that punch holes through the paper.
Yeah.
Those are kind of individually.
Yeah, so they saved a little work on this thing, and then they added a little work on this thing.
But by and large, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, pretty much. They're pretty much the same. Get that back on there. And you just look, you can look right down through and align grooves in the underside of the body to these shafts. You can see, when you look down through the inside, you can see where these shafts are that the upper unit rides down along. Yep, there's a groove right there you can see. You look down through the top, it rides right along there, it goes straight down. Yep.
That couldn't be simpler.
Lock it on. That's really well made.
The mechanism for the space bar and the contact for the escapement go right out the back,
Yep.
and they line up perfectly. It works. I mean, it's ingenious.
Yep. And it's real convenient. This one has a paper table. You can see, you know, if you're sitting
Oh,
over
and
here.
the paper table is also printed so that when you flip it open to set your margins and your tabs, you get some advertising.
Yep. And then you see the individual tab stops that slide and the margins behind them, each with scales.
And then one of the bearings that the
Little roller.
that's kind of Harris-like, isn't it? The bar
yeah.
back here.
Yep.
And
Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that this carriage is the same as was introduced on the what's called the improved Rex number 10.
yeah, I bet it is.
But since
Can't prove
we've
it.
never seen an improved Rex number 10 and probably won't, we can't prove it. There's one more thing I want to show you. See if I can get the carriage off of this thing here. You want to take the camera?
Okay. Which one are you going to try to
I'm
take
gonna
off? The
the
2 or
number
the
2
1?
because this number 1 is cantankerous. But the way the carriage comes off is pretty interesting. Over to the left, I hit the margin release. Keep going. And look.
Whoa.
Now look what happened here. There's the drawband. It got caught by a specially designed hook
Yep.
and retained.
Yep.
It was retained by that special design hook, so I don't even have to touch it. That's a
Which
little
is
bit
the
better.
Imperial, right? The Imperial, you have to physically pull it off and put it on a little hanger or post over here. This one, it's automatic.
That's right.
And the clip on this is different than the one is. This is a little bit better design.
Right. And you can see here, if I wanted to change carriage lengths,
It's just that rail.
take this rail off.
Yep. There are sets of ball bearings held in like you can't really call them races.
They call them caterpillar bearings was the
Yep,
name. It's
yep.
that unit right
And
there.
if you tip it back, I can see the rollers right in there probably. Yeah, see the ball bearings in there?
Mm-hmm.
So there's one set. There's another set. Those sets of ball bearings ride on this rail right
See
here.
if I can get it back on there.
These are not as easy to put back together as the
Now,
Imperial
this
is
sure
for the
does
carriage.
not go on as easy as the Imperial did. I can tell you that much right now. We'll see if it wants to.
There you go.
There we go.
And it picked up the drawband automatically on the way over. And the drawband will be effective all the way to the furthest left travel of the carriage.
Yep.
Demountable. Alright, so that's it for this video.
See you again soon.